Right. Hello. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Charlie Schaub.
What was your position in the military?
I did very little in the military. I was a statistical lab assistant. Very boring.
So when did you serve?
September 1966 to September 1968. I was a Spec 4, which means my permanent rank was PFC.
So where were the places you served?
I did my basic training down at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Then I moved up to my permanent station, which was Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. I stayed there for the rest of my tour, except for a 3-month TDY to Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
All right. Where did you go after leaving the military?
I went back to my job with the Defense Department. I'd graduated from college in June and started with the Defense Department in June and worked for 3 months before I was called in. And I went back to the Defense Department and stayed there for almost 30 years.
Wow. What made you interested in joining the American Legion?
I had never really knew much about the American Legion. I heard of American Legion baseball. That's the only thing I knew. When I separated from the Army, they gave us a little briefing about, they didn't say a thing about the American Legion. I don't even know if we were eligible for the American Legion at that point. Anyhow, I was up on a work assignment in Canada for 3 years, and somehow I saw something about American Legion and that I was eligible. And there's nothing like being out of the country that makes you feel more patriotic. So I filled out the form and sent it in, and I was accepted. I sent my copy of my DOD 214, the magic paper that all veterans need for anything. And so I was assigned to sort of a just general, no post, because I was out of the country. When I returned to the U.S., to Maryland, they put me in the state of Maryland thing, again, not assigned to any post. And then there was a big drive to get everybody in a post. And then when I moved to a friend's house 4 years ago, Marty, who you just talked to, Marty Levin, said, "Are you a veteran? You should come over to our post 68 in Sandy Spring." And I said, "Well, I'll give it a try." And that was the kind of post I was looking for. It was, they didn't have a home base. They didn't have a restaurant, a bar. They were just doing what I consider Legion things. And I said, these are nice people. I'll stick with them for a while anyhow.
All right. What are some of your favorite things that you have done with the American Legion?
Well, a lot of them are very good. I think the most important, though, is the cemetery flag ceremony on Memorial Day. I think that's very moving, and I knew some of the names on the tombstones, and I'd worked, met a fellow at a friend's house who was a native of Sunshine. I didn't know anybody ever lived in Sunshine, but they did. And he showed me his parents' grave and his wife's grave on that tour, and now he's joined her in the Mount Carmel Cemetery, and I saw his grave on the last tour. Another thing that I found very moving is Laytonsville Elementary School Veterans Day program. It's American Legion doesn't do much except show up there, but it is such a nice patriotic thing. And when they get the kids singing your grand old flag, I mean, everybody's got to, even if you're not a real patriot, you got to be turned on by that. Let's see what else. The parades are nice, just showing that we're still some veterans around. The flag retirement ceremony is also very good. I've been to that, I think, 3 times now, and it's very well done. I know you scouts do that, and we're just sort of there as guests, but it's very nice, and I enjoy that.
I just said I think we're glad.
All right. Well, How do you feel like your role in the American Legion is a continuation of your service to your country and community?
Well, I was not an enthusiastic military person. I was drafted, I did my duty, but as they say in American Legion and others about veterans,
Yep.
all gave some gave all. I gave some, not a whole lot. It was 2 years out of my life, out of my career. But they took some years out of Elvis's life, some years out of Joe DiMaggio's life, Ted Williams' life. So I did my duty, and I figured that I didn't need to continue. I didn't keep in touch with any of my military comrades or anything. Never went back to look at my old forts or anything. The American Legion, though, I think it's the idea of patriotism, and that I'm old enough that I remember when the last Civil War veteran died, when the last World War I veteran died. And now I may live long enough to see the last World War II veteran die. And so there's a continuity there of the people who served. And I'm in that part of that from the Vietnam era. I never went to Vietnam, but I was Vietnam era veterans. So I'm sure there are going to be a lot of Vietnam era veterans who outlive me. I certainly hope so, because most of them are younger than me. So it's a continuity that, yes, I mean, that story about West Point, the long gray line, it's sort of the tradition that the military, from Revolution till now, people have served in the military, not professionals, but citizens called to join and were told to join, either way you want to look at it. And I was one of them. And so just a reminder that, yes, this is my duty. My father was a World War II veteran. He never talked about his service. He was not in combat. But he was overseas, and they were dropping bombs, so he could have been killed in action. But he never told much about his military stories. But he did ask to be buried in a military cemetery, and my mother joined him there. So that's not much of a military tradition in our family, because my brother's a genealogist, and he couldn't find anybody between the War of 1812 and World War II who served. So, yeah.
What would you tell somebody who may be interested in joining Norman Price Post 68?
I would tell them, if they're looking for a place to hang out and have a few drinks, this isn't the post for them. But if they're interested in doing things that raise the public awareness of veterans, that honor veterans, and this would be a very good post for them.
All right, is there anything you'd like to add on?
Yeah, there's that one question.
Oh, yeah. Could you tell us about the missing in action flag that you salute at the start of your meetings?
Oh, yes. I am the post sergeant at arms, and that means that one of my duties is to take the chair cover with the MIA thing and put it over the empty chair, which is a symbol for all the Americans, armed forces members who are missing in action or unidentified. And so it's an important thing. You read the newspaper, every so often they've identified remains from here and there, and there are very few missing in action or unidentified lately, fortunately. But there's still a lot there. There are probably, let's say, World War II veterans are all gone, probably some from Korea, from Vietnam that are still unaccounted for. And it is nice to know that there's interest in finding them and identifying the remains and letting the family know exactly what the situation is.
All right. Do you want me to redo that question?
No, that's fine.
Or-
And if is there any? So this will be compiled for a documentary, but there will also be just an uncut version of everything you've said too. And is there anything like any quotes, any last stories that you'd like to tell the documentary? Or to be put in the documentary?
Well, just something about the Vietnam era. You didn't live through it, obviously, but you've seen some of the things where there was a lot of anti-war sentiment in this country. Whether people were right or wrong, I don't know. But the way they treated the military was totally disrespectful to human beings. They did not understand that we thought we were doing the right thing. We were following our country's policy. And those are the people they're misguided, okay. But my contemporaries, most of them thought I was stupid because I managed to get drafted. There was just so many ways around it, and they said, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so, I mean, some of these were people working for the Department of Defense. It's just amazing. And so I'm glad to see that the people from the Vietnam era are getting respect now. I mean, was the war a mistake? I don't know. But that was our government's policy at the time, and they called me and I went.
Right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well spoken. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I mean, you
It's very
too.
informative and it's an honor.
Well, thank you. As I say, my military career was very brief and uneventful, thank goodness. But I was there. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll get your...